I began luring the clever fellows out of their safe space of camaraderie, one at a time. Despite using an embarrassingly simple tactic, the oh-so-bright sorcerers never realized what was happening. After taking out the second lover of large and bearded heads, the remaining degenerate was also tricked into action. What a despicable lack of reasoning. Having finished off the last of the masked hoodlums, I shifted my attention to the troll wielding an absurdly large sword. The knightly brute, maybe rattled by my killing of its only friends, simply fell flat on the stairs. Not wanting it to recover, I crushed what would have been its organs of breeding, had it not been lacking in that regard. How could anyone consider that thing useful? I dodged the impact of its immense weight, but somehow still felt guilty for avoiding it. Despite that lingering sense of cowardice, I just wanted to annihilate this hideous creature. And I did. The troll left me something, though. A very attractive and impressively large sword with a distinct bluish hue. While enabling me to perform some appealing moves, it somehow felt as if a piece was missing. Whatever it was, I clearly wasn't perceptive enough to figure it out, and continued up the flight of stairs. A creature, just standing there, seemed to radiate an objectively misguided sense of style. Truth be told, it was saddening to see this most likely ghoulish-looking servant posing like a desperate kitchen wench waiting for a stolen kiss. Why else bother with a disgusting sack as headgear, if not for ugliness beyond belief? Arriving at an eerie meeting place, I saw a great number of exquisite-looking chairs lined up around a shallow pool. But there were no signs of hostile creatures in this silent space. Only that damned shimmering wall indicated trouble ahead. Delightful. Another knight on an enormous steed. But whoever this warrior was, it was also apparent that it had to be some sort of phantom, except for the fact that it delivered lethal blows, and did so generously, several times. As I lay dying, I wondered to myself, what was that knight even guarding? It didn't take long, though, for me to find a suitable approach for the shimmering apparition, and as I finally caved in and embraced the mating ritual of dodging and avoiding blows, I managed to punish every single attack. Until I didn't. There was something terribly wearisome about this rider. The fight itself wasn't particularly enticing, nor did the knight with all of the ornamental sorceries present a noble challenge. It was merely tedious, but it reminded me of something important. If I ever were to return to Limgrave, I would have to pay a visit to another knight, one with a majestic and golden steed. Being reminded of that brute was the true reward here. Growing desperate, the transparent ghost of a knight conjured forth arrows, including one of enormous proportions, and it came at me with uncanny speed. Had it not been for my acceptance of peasant rituals, I would surely have died. In the wake of the battle, I just stood there in the middle of that strange pool, catching my breath. There was nothing here except for the wind and the absence of those who once upon a time gathered in the circle. Why had the knight guarded this place? It had obviously been protecting something valuable or someone important. After pondering the nature of this abandoned site, I left, and found myself in a foggy and mysterious terrain with an ominous-looking tower looming close by. Wandering through this crystal-infected landscape, I couldn't help but sigh in resignation as I saw another one of those elderly dragons. It had not done anything wrong, and who was I to attack ancient animals just minding their own business? Sneaking nobly around that innocent piece of nature, I entered a tower full of books, urns, and crystals, and a statue of some long-dead girl, preoccupied for eternity in what appeared to be a prayer. There was no one here, and the tower felt empty. Yet something lingered in the back of my mind. Finally, at the end of a nauseating stairway, I entered a small chamber and abruptly came to a halt. Who was this creature? Slowly approaching the lavishly clad sorceress, I made my presence known.
A Tarnished here. Thou must have some business in mind to come all this way, though I have no memory of inking thee an invitation.
And then I noticed this sleeping beauty had 4 hands.
No reason in particular thou claimest.
For some reason, though, and despite of being visibly confused by my unannounced arrival, she wanted me to work for her.
Wilt thou enter into my service? I am the witch Ranni.
So, it was the helpful daughter after all. I was not surprised, but did knights truly enlist for nothing more than a suggestive smile? Sadly, weakness of the flesh made men dull-witted. On the other hand, not wanting to offend the admittedly captivating lady of these lands, I agreed to her offer.
I see. A choice well made. Thou art a rare sword. There is, in my service, a half-woven warrior by the name of Blythe. I would have thee join him in searching for the hidden treasure of Nokron.
I must admit, a quest for a hidden treasure did sound intriguing, and with a companion for once, one who was already waiting for me downstairs.
Ah, and there wilt thou find Iji, my war counselor.
Was she talking about that gentle troll whom I had met just prior to my arrival? I then began noticing some odd things about her, one of which was related to her body. Several of her limbs seemed to be sewn together. Wait, had I just accepted a soft-spoken blue doll with 4 hands and a beguiling smile as my mistress? But it didn't matter. We were all broken. Heading down to the servants waiting for me below, I realized with some ambivalence that I was slowly beginning to get acquainted with the lands between. Such a strange world. And there he was. Just as Ranni had mentioned, I found Iji waiting for me with that distinctive patience of his. But how come he appeared to be an apparition?
Lady Ranni has explained everything.
Even so, I thoroughly enjoyed talking to that gentle troll again, feeling genuinely relieved that he also served this sorceress, because it was known how a cruel master would never enjoy loyalty from truly noble beings.
I will give you whatever guidance I can, and pray for your success.
Parting ways and going further down the stairs, I met a tall and wolfish individual with an imposing sword. He introduced himself and began to explain the plan. But I became distracted. My thoughts kept returning to his magnificent sword, and I wondered what it would feel like to wield it. His cloak also seemed both dashing and comfortable. Maybe the armor wouldn't even need to be fitted.
I'm situated in Limgrave right now.
It was during this conversation that it dawned on me how the ghostly aura around both this wolf dressed like a man and the kind troll was some sort of magical projection. This meant something else as well, namely that the knight I had bested hours ago was alive somewhere. On my way out of the tower, I encountered the last servant mentioned, but this one had a slightly unpleasant air about him.
I see. You must be Ranni's new hireling.
Thus, I met a most pompous gossiper, greedily slurping his own words.
I am Seluvis, preceptor in the sorcerous arts. I don't know what it is the mistress sees in a provincial tarnished like you, but since we have the misfortune of serving the same lady, I ask that you kindly try not to...
Despite me knowing that he wasn't really here, I approached him with a strong desire to rip out his conceitful tongue and feed it to the wolves outside.
I reside in another tower close by. Come and pay me a visit.
I think I would like that very much, and maybe even bring him gifts of pain and suffering while I was at it.
If it were up to me, I wouldn't waste my time on the likes of you. But who am I to stand against the wishes of my lady?
I already knew that I would meticulously enjoy murdering this venom-spewing and slick sorcerer. A long journey lay ahead of me, even with dear Torrent helping me cross the endless and swampy lakes of Liurnia. In the end, I had to return to Stormvale Castle to reach my destination. Despite my visceral disdain for that fortress of dismemberment, I would have to wander its dark hallways before returning to the grassy hills of Limgrave. Be that as it may, I relished the thought of leaving this region of dampness and wicked sorcery. I was done with these wetlands and the suffocating fog, and I didn't want to hear the distant bells of mutated ghouls, nor think of kind-hearted thops slowly being eaten by worms in that demeaning and remote corner of the academy. I was done with Liurnia. To hell with it.